धन्यवाद। श्री Shashi Tharoor.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Madam Chairman, it is a rare privilege to be able to support fully every word spoken by the Honourable Leader of the Opposition in respect of this bill that is before the House today. I would like to join her in commending not only the Minister for having brought the bill forward, the Chairman of the Standing Committee of the Human Resources Development for having accepted creative suggestions from the artistic community, and you for allowing this to be introduced at short notice. But I would also like to add to that my commendation for the outstanding speech by the Leader of the Opposition, with whom I think none of us in this House can possibly disagree. Madam Chairman, the problem is that though the Indian Copyright Act of 1957 in its current form holds in most instances that the creator of a work is its rightful owner, except when the piece is created under contract, where it goes to the company that has commissioned the work, the companies have taken advantage of this, as the Leader of the Opposition pointed out, by getting artists to sign contracts that are not to their own advantage. In the 1960s, the Nightingale of India, Lata Mangeshkar ji, raised the issue that in the music industry, composers and musicians, once they sold their work to companies, received nothing more than the agreed price. And any income from the distribution of these songs went to the companies. This is the real problem, Madam Speaker. That companies, once they reimburse the musicians once, having bought the work, they feel they have complete control over the work, which they may assign as they wish and how they wish, reaping all the attendant income. Now, it gets further complicated because in music, you are no longer looking at just a one-time deal. There's now the phenomenon of remixes, where very often old songs are revived, played by a new artist with new instruments, but the same lyrics, the same tune, and suddenly these old songs revived and remixed bring in large amounts of money for the companies that own these songs. But for all one knows, the composer of yesteryear, the singer of yesteryear, the person who wrote the lyrics, the artist, the composer who created the tune, they may be dying in penury because they are excluded from any of the benefits, any share of such income by the companies. In fact, I must say that the fact that the Minister has thought of this also in the bill and put in a 5-year period before songs can be redone, remixed and changed, this is a very positive development in the bill, and I'd particularly like to draw attention to it because the works are ultimately the intellectual property of the creators, and they should have a say in how and what their music, what is done with their music, how it can be altered, remixed or changed. Now, the fact is that there are essentially two rights at stake here. There's the sound recording and there is the underlying work, the composition, the tune. And when a song is played anywhere on radio, on your computer, on your ringtone of your cell phone, really two sets of royalties have to be generated. Two sets of people have to be rewarded. Those who have done the recording, and that's the producer, perhaps the company, and those who have done the performance, the lyricist and the composer. And the idea was always that a fair deal would be 50-50 between these two. 50% for those who've taken the capital risk and produced the music, the work, and 50% for those who've actually thought it up. Now, at the moment, what's happened is that the 150% is crowding out the other 50%. It's like the story of the Arab in the tent, where the camel is outside the tent and puts its nose into the tent, and after a while the head comes in, and soon the camel is inside the tent and the Arab is outside the tent. That is what is happening. The composers, the lyricists, they are outside the tent, and the music companies have occupied all the space. Now, this is something we need to do, we need to deal with. The basic issue is that the creative parties in the music business should have say over their work. Their right is vested, not, it seems to me, in the companies. The companies have taken the wrong analogy. They've sort of acted as if they're building a building and they've commissioned somebody to actually put the bricks and the mortar and build the wall. Once the wall is built, the building belongs to the owner. But music and creativity is not like that. Music, any creative art, is not the result of a mere monetary investment. The business side is important, but it has to respect the feelings of the creative parties by granting them a commercial success in their works. In fact, Sushma ji read out from the letter that was sent by the very distinguished galaxy of artists. I'd like to read another different part of the letter, because she's right that the fact that they have become non-entities was an important part of their letter. But at the end of the letter, they specifically ask that the committee should, in the bill, secure the right to royalty in favor of authors and composers as a non-assignable and non-waivable right, and thus in doing so, the irrevocable right of authors and composers to secure a royalty is protected against the predatory interests of music companies and film producers. And this is exactly what we have seen done by the committee, accepted by the minister in clauses 8 and 9 of the bill before us today, which amends section 18 and section 19 of the Copyright Bill. And I think this is particularly impressive. As the leader of the opposition pointed out, this letter making this request has been signed by a veritable who's who of the creative industry. We have everyone from Pandit Ravi Shankar and Ustad Amjad Ali Khan to modern icons like A.R. Rahman and Shankar Ehsan Loy. And it's extremely important that we respect and stand in solidarity with these great names of our music industry. If I may say so, respecting creativity, I have in a modest way been a bit of a creative writer myself. And I want to say to this House, we must understand that creativity is not something that can be measured in a simple output. It is not a building. It is not a measurable job of work. A song you listen to for 5 minutes might have taken 50 hours to compose. And where that inspiration comes from, what part of human genius or divine genius the composer has tapped into, the lyricist has tapped into, for that no price can be put. It is so important to say that it is impossible to measure the value of the creative spark in human beings. What goes into creation, if I can borrow a story that I witnessed from a different field, the field of artistry. I once saw a Chinese brushwork artist at work, in which, with several swift strokes of his special brush, he produced a brushwork painting in about 3 minutes. And the people gathered there asked, what would the charge be for this? And he said, I think $25,000. And they said, $25,000 for 3 minutes work? And he said, 3 minutes, ma'am, and 40 years of my life. That is the experience, the creativity, the talent that goes into producing that 3 minutes work, and the same applies to the singer. A 5-minute song is not seeking reward for 5 minutes. It is seeking reward for the 50 years, perhaps, or the 50 hours at the very minimum that have gone into conceiving it, composing it, discussing it, changing it. How many drafts of the lyrics have been torn up and discarded before new lyrics could be written? These are the kinds of acts for which we are seeking recompense, and it's only fair that it be given. The Christian Bible says that man does not live by bread alone. We all know that human nourishment is not just the nourishment of bread or food. It is a nourishment that comes from the creative spark, that which enriches life. Because after all, why should you eat bread? To survive? But then why survive if it is only to eat more bread? You need to do more. You need to create. And that creativity, therefore, is so precious and vital to the human being.
Please order, please. No.
And if I may just say this, Mr. Chairman,
seriously speaking, please listen.
That this creative spark, which cannot be reduced to a few rupees, must be honoured and is being honoured in this bill. I would like, therefore, since the House is understandably impatient for lunch, to bring this argument to a close by stressing, Mr. Chairman, that there is also a long tradition in our country, in the legislative traditions of this House and of this Parliament, of passing laws that protect the weaker individual against the stronger institution. That is also something we're standing for today. These may be great names with whom we enhance our own stature by expressing solidarity with the likes of Pandit Ravi Shankar and Ustad Amjad Ali Khan and Javed Akhtar and A.R. Rahman. But the fact is, in so doing, we are also standing up for the weaker in this equation, because the individual is never able to stand up on his own against the strength of a powerful corporation. In that context, the particular help given in this bill for the visually impaired needs to be applauded, Mr. Chairman. This is a bill that stands up for the weaker elements of our creative society, and I would join the Leader of the Opposition in commending its adoption to this House. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Shri Sarath Yadav. If you want to speak, then I will call you. Next, I will call you. Do you want to speak now? He asked it. No, I will call next, I will call you.
मैं अब विस्तार से